Welcome back everyone. Welcome to another video. And in this video, I'm going to cover everything about compound interest and compounding. So starting with The Compound Effect, the book by Darren Hardy, which is the New York's best-selling book, and it has got 6 elements. So I'm going to cover those 6 elements, and then I'll move to the actual theoretical part of the compound interest, and then compare that with the real data analysis. And for that, I'm going to use the last 30 years data of the S&P 500 index. For those who doesn't understand what an S&P 500 is, it's basically the stock market index, tracking 500 of the largest companies in the US stock exchange. This video is going to be loaded with information, so make sure you watch till the end to get the most value out of it. So let's get started. So the first one is the compound effect in action. Darren starts with the very powerful message, and that is small action matters. But we often don't see this because our mind is trained to get instant results. It's known as the microwave mentality. We like quick services, instant food, fast results. And it's so easy to get frustrated when we work hard and don't get immediate results, right? But you have to be conscious of the fact that the real magic happens slowly. Let's take this example of 2 friends, Scott and Larry. Scott loves his daily coffee ritual, spending $4 on a soy latte. It seems like a small indulgence, but it adds up. $80 a month, which is $960 a year, and a staggering $19,200 over 20 years. In return, Scott enjoys a daily caffeine boost, but in the long run, ends up with nothing more than the memory of all those cups of coffee. Meanwhile, Larry takes a different path. Instead of spending $960 on coffee, he invests that money into an index fund with an average annual return of 10%. Over the course of 20 years, that simple decision compounds into nearly $60,000. While Scott enjoys his coffee, Larry has significantly grown his wealth, transforming small savings into financial freedom. The difference? One chose short-term gratification, while the other opted for long-term gain. I'm not against coffee, alright? I'm just giving you a small example of how this small decision every day can transform your life. We all want quick wins, but the secret is to sticking to those small decisions, small actions every single day for a long run. So the lesson from this point is success doesn't come from radical changes or big leaps. It's about making small, smart choices consistently. We have to trust the process, believing that those small changes, those small actions will pay off in time. The next is about our choices. Darren says that our life is a reflection of our choices, good or bad. The problem is we actually don't realize how much control we have over our circumstances. When life gets tough, it's easy to blame others, bad luck, or circumstances beyond our control. But Darren says that you are the person in control of your life. It's all about the choices that you make every single day. In this book, Darren shares a deeply personal story from his own life about how his father taught him the power of responsibility. When Darren was young, his father would remind him, it's not the situation, it's your choices. These words stayed with him forever. He reflects on times when he struggled, feeling frustrated with work, relationships, or finances, realizing that it wasn't bad luck, but a series of choices he had made that led to those results. You have got the power to change your life, but it all starts with owning your choices. So the lesson from this chapter is, to master the compound effect, you must take complete responsibility of your life. Every outcome, good or bad, starts with your daily choices. The next one is habits. Habits are like autopilots for our lives. We repeat behaviors without even thinking whether they're harmful or helpful, right? In this chapter, Darren reassures that it's okay to have bad habits. What's important is to recognize that you have bad habits and you try to replace that bad habit with good habits. To illustrate the importance of habits, Darren shares this inspiring story of the Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps. Phelps didn't become an Olympic legend by luck. He did it by sticking into his habits day after day, years after years, often swimming more than 50 miles a week. Every time he dove into the pool, he was building his future success, one lap at a time. The early morning alarms, disciplined meals, visualization techniques, they were part of his everyday routine. Over time, these habits compounded into something spectacular. Changing habits can be daunting. We all have habits that we wish we could change. The key is to start small and keep going. So the lesson from this chapter is, success is not a product of grand action, but of small, consistent behaviors. To achieve your goals, identify your bad habits, replace them with positive ones, and repeat these habits consistently. The next one from the book is momentum. In this chapter, Darren says that starting is often the hardest part. You might feel like you're pushing a huge rock up the hill and it's exhausting. But once you've started to see some progress, the momentum takes over, and then it gets easier. In this chapter, Darren shares his personal experience of building his business. At first, everything seemed uphill. He was working long hours, making endless calls, and feeling burnt out. There were moments when he doubted if all his efforts would ever pay off. But then, one day, he noticed things started to pick up. Clients were calling him, referrals were coming in, and suddenly, what once felt like a grind had turned into a smooth running machine. The momentum had taken over. Pushing through those early stages can be tough, but if you can just hang in there and stay consistent, momentum will eventually pick up and things will get easier. It's a reminder that the struggle is temporary, but the rewards are long lasting. So the lesson from this is momentum amplifies your efforts. Once you get into that rhythm, stay consistent and let the compound effect multiply your results. The next chapter in this book talks about the influences. We are shaped by our surrounding more than we realize. Darren talks about how the people we spend time with, the media we consume, and even our physical environment influences our choices and behaviors. In this chapter, Darren shares a very inspiring story about his mentor, Jim Rohn, who taught him one of life's most powerful lessons. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Darren realized that some of the people in his life were pulling him down, and it wasn't until he made a conscious decision to surround himself with positive, successful individuals that his life began to change. He didn't cut people off with harness or judgment. He simply shifted his focus to spending more time with those who inspired and uplifted him. So the lesson from this chapter is be mindful of what you allow into your life. Whether it's the media you consume, the friends you keep, or the environment you create, make sure these influences align with your goals. And the final chapter of this book talks about the acceleration. It's all about taking things to the next level once you've built that momentum. Because there is a temptation to slow down once you've built the momentum, and that's something you don't want to do. You want to push harder so that you can get greater rewards. Darren shares an inspiring story about this triathlete. At first, his goal was just to finish the race, but once he saw that what he was capable of, he decided to push harder. He hired a coach, trained longer, and ate better. This acceleration took him beyond his expectation and helped him achieve personal records. It wasn't easy. There were days when he wanted to quit, but the results were worth it. His story is a testament to the fact that when you give more, life gives more back. Pushing beyond your comfort zone can be scary, but you know what? Nothing grows in your comfort zone. You have to stretch beyond your comfort zone to get the ultimate reward. So the lesson from this final chapter of the book: to experience exceptional results, you must accelerate your efforts. Once the compound effect is in motion, don't settle for incremental progress. Challenge yourself, raise the bar, and push beyond your comfort zone. So in summary, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy talks about small, consistent actions over time, leading to amazing results. Success isn't about big, dramatic changes. It's in those daily choices, habits, and the grit to keep going. Darren encourages us to take charge of our lives, build positive habits, and stay patient while momentum works wonders for us. Making little tweaks, surrounding ourselves with the right people, the good ones, and constantly pushing beyond our comfort zone is the key. By doing this, we can reach the long-term success. The compound effect is more than just a tool. It's a powerful force that transforms lives when used consistently. Stay patient and let your small action compound over time. That's where the true success lies. Now that we have covered how we can incorporate compound effect into our life, let's see how we can use the compound effect or the compounding in our investment journey to be successful. Now, to understand compound interest, I'll clarify everything on an Excel sheet, but first let's get the basics right. So what is compound interest? Well, the basic fundamental is your capital is growing at a certain growth rate, right? But the biggest difference is that the growth rate is established at a new level. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's jump into the spreadsheet and you will get the complete picture what I mean. Say you start your investment with $100 at a growth rate of, let's say, 10%. So at the end of the first year, you'll have $110. Now the next year, when you get another growth of 10%, that will be on the new base of 110, not 100, but 110, meaning your growth will be 10%, but now your return amount will be $11 instead of 10, which means now your new base is 110 plus 11, which is 121. Now again in the next year you grew by another 10%, but the base changes to 121, which means now you earn $12.1, meaning after the third year your initial investment of 100 becomes 121 plus 12.1, which is $133.1. So in 3 years $100 becomes $133.1, and so on and so forth. Now let's see this whole thing in the spreadsheet. So we start with $100 at a growth rate of 10%, which makes the return to be $10. So the new amount will be 110. Now, if you go to the next year, the new level will be 110, as we spoke earlier, right? And then how this happens? So it's 100 plus the return of the previous year, which makes the new level to be 110. Now the third year, same, the new level from 110 becomes 121. So basically 110 plus 11, it becomes 121. So third year, the return will be $12.1. So in just 3 years, your $100 will be $133.1. So if we repeat this for 30 years, let's see what happens. So just wait for it. And boom, look at that. Look at the magic. So $100 in 30 years, it becomes $1,586, almost $1,600 in 30 years. You're just $100 investment. Now, if we plot the graph, you see the graph, this exponential graph. But if you observe the graph closely, see the first 9 to 10 years, this almost flat. And when it gets its momentum from 10 years onwards, it starts exploding, right? And that's the true magic of compounding. And this might seem unrealistic, and the theory might not match the reality, which is why I have the real data of the last 30 years of S&P 500. In the next spreadsheet, I'll explain with all the data, the real data, and see how we can compare the theoretical versus the real case scenario. So let's get into the real data analysis. So this spreadsheet, I've taken the last 30 years data of S&P 500 index, month on month, year by year return from 1993 all the way to 2022. So here the green indicates the positive return and the red indicates the negative returns, which is an indication that it's not smooth at all, unlike what we saw in the theory, a smooth curve. That's definitely not going to happen in real life, right? By the way, I'll put the link in the description for all the resources. You can check them out and play around with. But despite all these ups and downs, there is compounding, and I'll show you now. I've converted this spreadsheet, the percentage data, into the actual dollar value, so which is this spreadsheet. So this has been converted from the percentage value to the dollar value. So you can see the first month of 1993, it was 1.72 percentage return. So if you see this one, it becomes 101.72 for our starting balance of $100. And so I've changed all these months into dollar figure all the way up until December 2022, where I see the return to be $1,664. So meaning my $100 initial investment in the year 1993, by 2022 it became $1,664. So meaning the compounded annual return, which is basically your final value, which is $1,664, divided by your initial value of $100 to the power 1 over number of years, that is 30 years, minus 1, because you're converting that into a percentage, and that value, that CAGR, compounded annual growth rate, becomes 9.83%. Now try to understand this. This means when we say our investment will give an annual return of 9.83%, we think it like the theoretical graph, that everything is hunky-dory and smooth, but no, this is just an oversimplification. The reality is far from the theory, right? The reality is full of ups and downs, this bumpy ride. But ultimately, you see, this, the return versus the theoretical. If you put that same formula, the CAGR formula, on $100 for 30 years, on a 9.83 percentage, you will see that the theoretical value is exactly the same. But what we don't realize is this ups and downs. You see $100 from 1993, that becomes 111.7 at the end of 1993 and 112 in 1994, and so on and so forth. But when we say 9.80% return on, let's say, an index fund, we expect that it's going to just grow smoothly every year, 9.83%. but that is not the case. This is the reality. You see, we were expecting 109, we got 111. Next year we were expecting 120.6, but we got 112. The following year we actually got 152.9, but the theoretical was 132, so it doesn't match. But if you go all the way to the last year, you see 164 versus 164. So the return of the theoretical versus the actual is the same. Now if you plot the graph, the theoretical versus the actual graph, my friend, is what no one tells you. Everyone tells you it's a smooth ride. You put your money in an index fund and you're gonna get a 9.83%, and you're just gonna see your money growing like this, like a smooth curve. No, the fact is this bumpy ride. But the fact is we just need to stay invested. You just have to ride the bumpy ride in order to experience this compound effect. I hope this comprehensive video was helpful and insightful. Do share this video with your loved ones. Just wanted to end this video with a powerful quote. No matter what you learn, what strategy or tactic you employ, success comes as a result of the compound effect. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.